Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Candidates Tournament, the most important tournament of 2026. This is round number 5 of 14. They play double round robin format, 14 games. The winner of this tournament will then go on to play for the World Championship against either Gukesh or Zhu and Jun later this year. Now, this tournament is bananas. We are 5 rounds in, and Hikaru Sindarov is running away. Out of his first 4 rounds, he has 3.5 out of 4 points. And a player who is struggling with only 1.5 out of 4 points is Hikaru Nakamura. And in round 5, as if they scripted it perfectly, it is Hikaru versus Sindarov. Hikaru with the white pieces looking to bring the leader of the event back down to earth. But if Sindarov wins, he will have 4.5 out of 5 and a 3-point lead against Hikaru. And before the tournament, many people picked Hikaru and Fabi as the 2 players to run away with it. Folks, this recap's absolutely nuts. As always, before we get into it, a quick shout out about the pre-ordered signed copy. There's only a couple hundred left, and only at Strand. And I will be writing custom fun notes in about 10 of these books. You might get one of the rarest Gotham books in the world. So check it out. Link is in the description. And if you're in the if you're in the United Kingdom, or in Europe or in Canada, we are working on it so you don't have to pay high shipping cost. Okay, we're working on it. But for now, a couple hundred books, you get them before they're gone. Really, I mean it. They will be signed. They will be autographed. All right. Hikaru versus Sindarov. Hikaru opens with the move d4. Queen's Gambit, declined, knight c3. Everything is normal so far. Now, knight f6 is the most common move, and it is the move that has been played throughout this Candidates Tournament. Sindarov plays something pretty provocative. He plays the move c6. This is called the triangle defense. Would you like to know why it's called the triangle defense? Because it makes a little triangle. It's like a little triangle of pawns. Now, the reason people play like this is it provokes white into playing the move e4, which is a very sharp line. And also, you actually threaten to take this pawn. And there is a variation called Note Boom, which is one of the most amazing names ever, where black takes this pawn, plays b5, and then just like hangs onto the pawn, and white tries to break it apart. Super sharp, super complicated line. So basically, black is like, I want to go here. Now, the way white can play in this position to chicken out of this is various e3s or knight f3s, but Hikaru plays e4. So Hikaru goes on the Uzbek roller coaster ride. Now, make no mistake, when black plays this, he knows this is the sharpest line. He knows. And so after pawn takes, knight takes, it looks like white's position is fantastic, but this move is very annoying because it's a check, and you either move your knight back like this, which is a little bit weak, or you block the check, or you move your king or lose your queen. But if you block the check, black can play the move, queen takes d4. And about 10 years ago, I played this line a lot with white. And when computers were not that strong for black, this line was considered very dangerous for black. Basically, you would take this bishop, black would take this knight with a check. And then, with white, you would move something in front of your king. And then with black, they would play knight a6, like you're about to see in this game. And, this position, I mean, it's super weird. This position's really weird. There is a move here, which is bishop to f8, which is a crazy move. This is an old variation. And if they take this bishop, it's mate. So back in the day, I mean, I used to play bishop to f8. It's a real legitimate move. And then, queen takes g2 would be possible. And then you would play queen d6, and it's super complicated. But rather than that, nowadays, they've been playing bishop to a5. So they've been threatening this mate, and then they've been playing queen d6 and so on. Now, Hikaru plays bishop d6 immediately. When you look at the opening database, bishop d6 is certainly a move that is played here. And now black takes a second pawn. Now, you might be wondering, what on earth am I watching? How is white already down 2 pawns? And isn't white's rook trapped? And why is the position equal? This is chess. There are some lines in chess that are very calm and everybody develops their pieces, knights in the middle and then the bishops and then you castle. And other lines look like this garbage. But it's dynamically in the balance. White walks a tightrope, right? Down 2 pawns, very complicated. If you fall off the tightrope, it's a poor ending to your story. But if you make it across, you will win the game. Bishop to f3, queen to g5, and now white has to develop all his pieces because white is down material, and white is looking for rook g1 and attacking ideas. And here, knight e7 is the main move, and now knight g3 is played. There's still a couple of games in the database. and black castles. Okay, everything is normal, right? Oops, we jumped back a little bit. That was strange. Anyway, black castles. Okay, I mean, everything is normal. I mean, we kick out the queen, we develop, we get our knight to the middle, and now black castles. Now, at this point, Hikaru thinks for 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 44 seconds. That's crazy. Now, if you follow the top line of the computer, there is only one line here. The top line of the computer is to put the knight on e4 attacking the queen, because the queen is guarding the knight. Now, the other idea is then rook to g1 and launch an attack against black's king. White has sacrificed all these pawns to open the position. White played a very risky line. The top line of the computer, the line that both of them should have memorized had they gone here, is queen a5 check. White plays b4, giving away this pawn. Black can't take it because the other knight is hanging. Queen goes back here. White then would play a move like rook to g1 or queen to d2, preparing an attack. And then what the computer gives here as the best way to play is knight to f5, giving up the rook, queen f8, and white can play long castle, and then black will play e5, and then white can sack the knight for no reason. And then there's rook g1, king h8, queen d8, bishop e6, queen f6, knight g7, rook g7, queen g7, rook d8, queen d8, queen g8, queen f6, queen g7, queen d8, queen g8, queen f6, queen g7, and it's a draw. So the most precise line that the computer finds is a forced draw because, I mean, white is down a bunch of material. The best that he can do is probably make a draw. Now, there are ways to avoid this. So the way to avoid this would be in this position to play the move rook to g1. And then if black plays knight f8 after bishop f8 and queen f8, you never played queen d2, you can play pawn to a3. This position is incredibly complicated, where black has a knight and 2 pawns and white has a rook, but a completely naked position. It's a very complicated position, but it's a position. But Hikaru, he didn't play that. He didn't play knight e4. He obviously didn't like something, and he spent 67 minutes. He played h4, and this move is wrong. It's wrong because you need the time right now to get to e4 with the knight. Queen a5 check, and then maybe here he can play king f1, king g2, but he plays b4. Javahir takes it. Javahir is up 3 pawns. You do not come back from a 3-pawn deficit. It's just not possible. And now, if you take this knight, he can play knight d5, discover check, and win the bishop back. And it's like not, I mean, it's not even complicated. And now Hikaru castles, and Javahir plays rook e8, defending his knight. So it's 3 pawns down for white, but the advantage is only 1 point, because white has so much activity, and black is going to struggle to get all his pieces out. At this point, the computer wants queen e1, pinning the knight to the queen, and then it wants to put its rook on d1. That is, when I ran Stockfish, it only looked at queen e1, c5, rook d1, and it actually thought white had very good attacking chances. And if you wonder what kind of attacking chances, for example, the knight can go back here, the bishop can go to, oh, sorry, that would actually lose the game, exactly. Queen a5 takes, and then bishop e7. So let's say black played like bishop d7. White has various attacking ideas with bishop e4, knight h5, bishop e5, queen e3, queen g5, etc. It's a very sharp position. The problem is Hikaru played queen d2. And then after Javahir played this move c5, ready to bring his knight back, and then also ready to trade off this knight, Hikaru's time to build something in this position down 3 pawns is quickly running out. He plays queen f4, and it's still okay, but at this point, the engine wants to avoid this knight coming here. It wants to take, and it wants to play h5, but like, I don't know how you can play like this, like a computer. It's just not possible. And Hikaru makes basically his last mistake. He makes a waiting move with king h1. He only has 16 minutes on the clock, because he spent 67 minutes, and after knight d4, it's over. Like, Sindarov is going to finish his development. He can eat all of Hikaru's remaining pawns. It looks like with white, you have something. You have nothing. You have nothing. This formidable pawn structure and a couple more moves, black is going to get back in the game. Hikaru, it's a beautiful position, but Sindarov is now just, he's in there, and he's going to start picking pieces up from the board. Queen d2 back. Sindarov trades. He takes the rook. Remember, he's up a bunch of pawns. So after rook d8, he pins the bishop, and this game, as much as it's looking like an opposite colored bishop endgame, this is lost. The pawn will walk to a4, the bishop and the king have to protect it, and in the meantime, these 4 pawns, these 4 pawns will overwhelm these 2. And Sindarov, methodically, just wins the game. He trades these pawns down, and the game is just lost. The game is lost, because black will walk the king here, and white cannot stop this position at all. And Hikaru resigned. This is It could not be further from the game than I expected going into this round. I mean, I expected Hikaru to play for a win, which is exactly what he did. He played one of the sharpest lines. But when you enter e4, Black must have spent hours looking at the lines in this position. And what's fascinating is Hikaru then gave an interview right after the game was played, and he said, according to him, the move castles was not covered in the file that his team sent him. I don't know who his team is. I don't know. I think he said there was a player in the top 20. But he gave that interview. I mean, I don't know if such insight should necessarily be presented, but that's why I'm here and, you know, he's there. I don't know. But the move castles wasn't in his notes, which does seem like a pretty big hole in what, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but to play into such a sharp line against Sindarov and then navigate this position on your own is brutal, man. It's brutal. And Sindarov is just on fire. Guys, Sindarov has 4.5 out of 5. Guys, Hikaru has 1.5 out of 5. What is going on? This is crazy. Now, is Sindarov just going to win the tournament? Like, is that the end of the candidates already after 5 rounds? Obviously, it's not. He could still lose, but back-to-back games, he outprepares Fabi and Hikaru. 4.5 out of 5. Javakir Sindarov is the 5th highest rated player in the world. Nodirbek is 4th or 6th. I think Nodirbek is still above him. He's like 2770. Now, the only hope remaining is, can Fabi win some games? And going into this round, I was not so sure. Blubaum has not lost. Having said that, Blubaum played 3 out of 4 games with White. That's the way his pairings worked out. He didn't play a single one of those games with White, really. He just made draws. So he plays the Petrov again. You might remember that Sindarov only didn't beat Blubaum, which is an accomplishment in and of itself at this point. And Fabi plays this line with knight c4. Nowadays, they're doing anything. They're playing knight c4, knight d3, knight f3. I mean, they're playing every line. And then Fabi played knight c3, takes. And if you look at the database, this is really not that popular at all. d5 and then, very normal play. And now here, Fabiano plays a move which doesn't look like it makes sense whatsoever. The move is bishop d2. If you tell a beginner what to play in this position, the beginner is going to play bishop d3 and short castle. In fact, I think like 9 out of 10 chess players who have any experience whatsoever would play that. The others would try to go for a scholar's mate or maybe hang the queen in one move. But bishop d2 is trying to prepare queenside castle. And actually, it's also trying to provoke a move out of black. The thing is, Blubaum is an extremely well-prepared individual who likes to stick to his structure. The only maybe weakness he has as a 2700 level player is give him a position to play. Like, he doesn't know necessarily where all of those pieces go. So he's like, okay, well, Fabi wants to go this way, so why don't I play g6? G6, very natural move. You want to go bishop g7, and here. The problem is g6 creates a hook. A hook in chess is a pawn advanced in front of a castled king. The king has not castled yet, but it will, and that means that white will now be able to target this pawn with f4 and h4 and h5 and f5. Fabi, I think, knew that. I think Fabi's preparation in this game was g6 looks really natural, and if it is played, it could backfire. And very quickly, he trots out f4, queen f3. Folks, it's obvious what's going to happen here. Either white will get mated, or black will get mated. Fabiano finds an incredible idea against the Petrov. This is a fascinating concept. Black might already be at a point he needs to play f5 himself, which is not very obvious. Instead, he kind of plays knight d7 and is like, I'm not really afraid of this. White has a hole on c5 that, black can play knight c5, knight f6, try to plant the knight there. And after long castle, knight c5, we have f5. I saw this position. By the way, at this point, Hikaru's thinking for an hour during the opening phase. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but Fabi's got a really nice game developing here. This is the exact position you want. You don't want Blubaum to have an easy structure, easy decisions. You want him to make complex choices. He goes castles now. And Fabi continues with g4. He has the most obvious plan in the world. Me, push, pawn. Me, checkmate. Boom, 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 boom. The knight lands on e4, all natural. But you will notice black is spending a lot of time and he's not developing. He's not finishing his development. And Fabi plays bishop d3, and his next move is going to be h4. So Blubaum has to act. Now, the engine here wants him to take this bishop, which is so unbelievably difficult to do because you're like, why did I move my knight around to take this idiot? Instead, he plays rook e8, which is a normal move. But this trade actually benefits white because if you take with the pawn, the center gets completely closed. and a close center benefits the attacking player, because once the center locks and this knight blocks, you bring the queen, you bring the rook, and you just go crazy. So he plays rook e4 to keep the position open. Here's Fabi's game is so simple. Fabi is like, he's drawing in a coloring book, and the color is written for him to write in. There are no creative decisions to make. The game plan was f4, queen f3, long castle, g4, h4. That's what he's doing. Blubaum plays bishop e5. Bishop e5 is a reasonable move, but like, the queen side is kind of screaming to be developed. Like bishop d7, he's got to bring the bishop out, because then he could bring the queen out and the rook. Goes here. Not super principled. Fabi can play h5 now. He plays c4. So he opens up this, but the bishop can come here. He's going to replace that pawn. He's going to put pressure on the center. Queen b6. Fabiano's got checkmate threatened on the board, c3. And now, for the love of God, Matthias Blubaum, there are children watching. Can you please develop your final bishop? But he doesn't, because why would he? The pawn is hanging. Developing the bishop here would lose a potentially incredibly critical pawn. So black goes queen a5. What could be more natural? You defend the pawn, and you attack on a2, and you probably expect white is going to play king b1. But Fabiano Caruana's not playing king b1! He correctly evaluates that losing the pawn here is actually not dangerous at all. In chess, you cannot define things with words. A lot of beginner, intermediate, even strong players are like, oh, queen a2, and then he's going to, oh, that's scary. That scary is not an evaluation. What is an evaluation is queen a2, he gives me check, I play king c2, then he could go back, then I go king b1, there's no more checks, and my attack looks stronger than his because I clearly have a concrete plan. Don't define things with words. Blubaum plays g5 to close the position. Now, at this point, Fabiano Caruana has a win on the board. Right around here, he has this incredible tactic, knight takes d5. And the computer was just screaming, knight d5, pawn takes bishop g5, and rook d5 is unavoidable. And not only is rook d5 unavoidable, queen a2, you can sack the queen and mate your opponent with a pawn. A humiliating defeat where you walk out of the hall, everybody's got a smartphone in your face, then you got to give an interview of how you allowed this to happen. So knight takes d5 was brutal, but Fabi went here. He thought for nearly half of his remaining time, and my heart started going, doo, 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 doo. I'm like, oh my gosh, Fabi. Now suddenly rook f4, and then Blubaum took back. Now it's not clear, like black is maybe going to get his bishop out and then his rook out, and he's going to launch a counterattack. But Fabi plays king b1. The position's still not so simple. Blubaum no longer has any time to develop his bishop, by the way, because of the counterattack. So he goes rook a4. Fabi goes c4. And the counterplay is just too strong. These pieces are, this is a performative attack. It's a performative, there's nothing there. The queen goes back, the knight takes on d5. You try to defend your position, just bishop c3. Ripping open the position. The king has no defenders. None. All the piece has to do is get in. Blubaum takes on c4, allowing basically checkmate. He goes out in style. Rook a2 would have been nice, but then just bishop takes. There's no mate. There's no mate, I promise. I can show it to you. There is no mate. Queen a4. You can even run the king, but b3 and the bishop comes back. Queen's hanging. No mate. And Blubaum goes out like, you know, like a boss. Takes on c4, knight f6, and he walks his king into a mate. And that's all fine and good. But we need to address the fact that the great Blubaum sweep is now finished. 5 rounds, 4 draws, 1 loss. I just want to give credit, though, to Fabiano Caruana. It is not easy to show up against the Petrov with a unique concept. And my goodness, did he come up with a unique concept. Baiting this type of setup and then launching a vicious counterattack against it that... Not a counterattack, just an attack. Beautiful game from Fabi. Who needs it? He is a point away from Sindarov. In their head-to-head, he lost the first game with black. So, yeah, he really, really needs it. Otherwise, the tournament's done. I mean, Sindarov is going to win the tournament. Like, 2-point lead with 5 games done. Of course, there's a lot of games to go, but something catastrophic would have to happen. So he wins. Now, another person who was a pre-tournament discussion to be, up there with the favorites. By the way, I picked Sindarov in my tier list. I mean, I also picked Hikaru, right? Because he did so well in the past and 2,800, but 1.5 out of 5 is really tough. That's really, really tough. And I did say in my tier list that it will be, it's a big question mark of the age and, how much mileage is left on the tires and everything. But I did say if a person wins this tournament, that would be unexpected, but not shocking. Sindarov. So Pragg was another pre-tournament favorite. Pragg deliberately plays some like English ready type of thing. There are certain nuances here, but I mean, I have played this myself with white. If you've been watching my channel for any time at all, white takes, And there's lines where black takes with the pawn, and then white plays like d4 or knight c3. Knight d5 is another interesting concept. After knight c3, b6, Esipenko was down 30 minutes on the clock. Here, white can sometimes go queen b1, bishop b7, h4, and look for checkmating ideas like this. But rather than getting anything too spicy on the board, you know, Pragg just played, oops, sorry, he did not play queen to b1. Pawn takes d5, he traded knights. And then, you know, he played completely normal moves and developed all his pieces really nicely. His knight is in the middle, all his pieces are out. But it's not so simple here. This web of center, you know, in the center is a little bit complicated. Black plays rook e8. Pragg probably has his, like, strongest advantage right here. He has to pick a plan to go forward. He plays queen f2, bishop back to d3. It looks like he can generate an attack here. I think maybe he should have went for queen h4. Queen h4 and maybe g4, g5, like, something with the queen on this square. But black is solid, you know, and he goes for f4. But Esipenko very quickly repositions very nicely to take advantage of the weakened e4 square. Nice reroute by him, Soviet school. And yeah, there's no attack. There's no attack. Pragg is still building something up. But Pragg bails. He bails out. In this position, you know, 25 moves played by each player, about 20 minutes to go. You can keep trying, but Pragg decides, like, let's repeat the position. There isn't anything here. And that's a costly half a point, you know, because Pragg is a strong player in this tournament to potentially, you know, make a run. Esipenko also has 1.5, I'm pretty sure. So he and Hikaru both at 1.5. And yeah, wild. So they make a draw. Now, Giri and Wei Yi does not play the knight f6, g6, bishop g7 symmetrical like he did against Fabiano. He plays a queen's gambit declined. By the way, this was the first round game between Fabi and Hikaru, with d4 was played, but the knight didn't go to f6. This is actually following the game Esipenko versus Hikaru, but this one just goes for a Catalan. And let me tell you something right now. If a Catalan appears on the board in a game between two 2,700 rated players, there is a 90+% chance it ends in a draw. That's just the truth. Wei Yi plays the open Catalan. I'm actually kind of shocked. Maybe Anish did not expect this, which is why he went for the mainline Catalan instead of, like, b3. But b3, black will play d4. It's just not easy. I mean, if black doesn't want to, you know, really take risks. Wei Yi plays a very forcing line. He plays c5. Historically, black will play bishop c6 here, bishop d5, bishop e4, prepare the move c5. He just gives away a pawn. He completely gives it away, dc, and he doesn't even try to win it back. He just plays with his bishop. But this pawn is almost impossible for white to hang on to. Black's next move will be knight bd7 and rook c8. And if white wants to hang on with this to this pawn with b4, he can. But then black is going to put a bishop on d5 and a knight on c6 and try to... So, yeah, Giri can hang on to this pawn. But he goes knight c3, a5 stops b4, and then he trades the bishop, and then knight d7. It's kind of unbelievable that this pawn can just stand here, but it's a permanent target, and it's just lost. Like, he just gave away his knight for the pawn, but because it's pinned to the queen, yeah, I mean, this is just what happens. This is the position after 22 moves. It's a draw. Queen and rook, completely symmetrical pawn structure. I think Giri will be very disappointed with this, although Giri is clearly playing for a win with black. That's the best way to describe it. With white, he did have some interesting preparation against Fabi. Sometimes it's almost easier nowadays to get a game with black. That's just the reality of the situation at top-level chess. I mean, the guy just plays a queen's gambit declined, you know? And in the first game, Hikaru went d4, complicated things. But, like, Esipenko versus Hikaru, I mean, you know, Hikaru took some risk, got in trouble. But, I mean, Wei Yi plays a pawn sacrifice variation where he just, like, over 7-8 moves wins the pawn back. And we don't even get a game. I mean, there is no game here. This is not a game. Okay, it's a little bit complicated, but, like, Wei Yi calculates this. And, I mean, this is a draw. Like, Anish tries and tries, but there's nothing... You got two pawns. It's just not gonna, you know, work. Kind of a flashy way to finish it too. Like rook takes, pawn takes, and then the king comes here, and the pawn goes here, and then, you know, the boys will just make a draw. Wei Yi bounces back. Wei Yi's having a also very rough tournament for him, but at least still kind of in the running. Did not lose to Hikaru yesterday, and Giri on 2.5 with Pragg. I'll show the standings on that side of the screen, throughout the recaps moving forward. So 2 draws, 2 kind of uneventful draws, and 2 absolutely massive bloodbath games, which are so important for the standings. And we will go over to the women's section. Lagno has provided us the best entertainment thus far. And Bibisara Sabayeva just had an unbelievable game against Drujiner. So this one, we go for Sicilian, knight c3. So avoiding Rasalimo and avoiding d4 and forcing a move out of black. Black voluntarily goes for the dragon. So d4, this is called the accelerated dragon, where black has not played the d-pawn. You accelerated the development of the dragon. That's why it's called that. Knight f6. Now, Lagno brings the knight back to b3 and stops black from getting a quick d5 in any sort of line. Queen d2. And now the most critical line here for black is to play a5. So when white puts the knights like this in various dragons, this pawn becomes extremely useful. It becomes useful because it kind of makes white play a5 themselves. I recall Jordan van Forest recently played a game in Pragg Masters where he just completely gave away this pawn. I think we were following the game Nojerbeck Jordan. It was like knight a4, knight e4, some queen move. I don't know. It was something super sharp and complicated. Maybe like knight d6, bishop b, I don't know. Something super, super obscure happened in that game. But that is the line. Like you got to go a5 and you got to get white to play a4 because then white doesn't castle as easily. But anyway, d6 is the move that she chose. And after that, she played a5. But a5 coupled with d6, now black can't take the pawn here. That's the major difference. There's never a line you can actually play a4. And it didn't even really matter because these two inclusive moves give white enough time to get a perfect setup. And now h4. And basically, this is the one moment that Bibisara could have used the slightly inaccurate play of white to get back into the game. Instead of that, white needed to play knight to d4 because knight to d4 would have defended the c2 pawn and bishop takes a4 would not have been possible. Basically, the point is that after bishop a4, knight a4, black can take on c2. And yes, black can lose 3 pieces, bishop, rook, and knight, and be fine. Or rook c1, which is a completely unintuitive move. She goes h4, and now Bibisara needed to play bishop takes, knight takes, rook c2. She needed to give away these 3 pieces and break open the center. That's what she needed to play. Ripping open the position, playing queen e8, hitting the knight, trying to open the position. The king is open. White doesn't have a queen. Instead, she went here. And now white gets a more or less kind of chill game. Black blocks her own bishop. I felt like Bibisara here did not have such a feel for the position, right? That's kind of, I'm not saying, I mean, she would destroy me in a game of chess. I'm simply saying, I get it. It happens. Like, you have bishop a4 on the board, you don't quite go for it, then you block your bishop, and then Lagno was just like, hey, so what if I just, like, defend my king with knight a1, which is an amazing defensive move? And kind of like the Fabi game, like, what if I just go for it? Now black has to roll the dice. She has to sack her rook, which is a typical idea in many Sicilians. Rook takes knight on c3, but there's not enough here. You don't have the firepower. Your bishop now has to leave, and I bring my knight back into the game. Still not even the most accurate way. Like maybe h5, or, I mean, there's bishop c5 here, just immediately looking for trades. Knight b3, though, is fine, and it doesn't feel like every time Bibisara had a moment to get back in the game, like right now, she could have went knight c3, bc3, bishop b3, gave away bishop c2, and then, like, again, you lose your queen, but you have e4, and apparently you have enough counterplay that you will survive this position, potentially. Bishop d4, queen e6, and queen a2. I'm not saying I would play these things. I'm just saying there were moments in this game, like, Bibisara just needed somehow to, like, be a little bit more dynamic, trust in her instincts, but she retreated, and Lagno, yeah, now she cleans up, and she doesn't even necessarily go for mate. She just goes to this endgame. And white just has a rook for a knight in an endgame with many pieces on the board. And yeah, she's going to get it done. Like, this is, yeah, cleans up. Black loses all her pawns. And bishop e3 is brutal. Completely brutal position here. Knight g8, rook f7. Absolutely brutal. And Lagno wins and Bibisara loses. And Lagno has had a crazy up and down tournament. She lost to Muzdachuk before the rest day. Now she bounces back, beats Bibisara, who also beat Drujiner. Everyone's taking a point from everybody else. And I've got a couple more games to show you. Tanjongi, Divya, Deshmukh. Both of these players have had tournaments. I think they would have preferred to have a little bit of a better tournament so far, but it's early. It's not, it's not catastrophic yet. And there is nobody with 4.5. Not even sure there's anybody with 3.5. There might be. Knight c3, it's just so close. Remember, the first and last are separated by like a point. This was an exchange. Queen's Gambit declined. And in these positions, I mean, white tries to advance on the queen side, and that's what happened. Remember the game Vaishali, right? Divya Vaishali. And, you know, white is advancing and doing the typical queenside stuff that Divya was doing when she was playing against Vaishali. But in this game, white never got anywhere. Divya defended very well. The knight was on the perfect square as it's supposed to be in the Carlsbad structure. Look at this beautiful maneuver. So here, black can play the move knight e4 in one move. But, you know, there's a saying in chess, when you can play a move in one move, you should play it in 3 moves. Reroute. No, of course, I mean, white is trying to break through. Black is not allowing. Now, actually, this is a very common motif in Queen's Gambit decline positions, in Carlsbad pawn structures. I'm saying a bunch of terms you don't know, but hopefully I sound smart and you respect me. And you can, you know, use this to win your next chess trivia night. Black goes for kingside counterplay with a powerful knight maneuver. White generally tries to break through on the queenside. Divya playing with a very high understanding here, but so is Tan Zhongyi. You know, she's quick with her counterpunch, and the game ends in a draw here. They just agree to a draw. They don't play this endgame out because, well, they would trade, and then black would go for that pawn. Black, you know, white would go for that pawn. Black would go for this pawn. King f2. They could play this out, but I think they respect each other enough that they don't play it out at all. Garechkina versus Anna Muzichuk. Anna looking for 2 wins in a row. We have a Rosalimo. Yeah, Garechkina also played this against Divya Deshmukh, and that game was really brutal. Divya got into a lot of trouble in that game. It felt like she played like the queen c7 setup. And in this game, Anna played like this. Now, there's a lot of lines here. c3, d4 is a line. There's various pawn sacrifices with b4. Fabiano Caruana has played that. I hate the Rosalimo for black. I mean, I try to play, you know, some random stuff against it. Garechkina, though, in this game, I mean, she plays a line where, well, white kind of has a more pleasant game, but, like, there's not much here. I mean, there's not too much here. You're probably not going to win this endgame with the symmetrical material, knight for bishop, and the 2 rooks. And, yeah, I mean, this is the same endgame Wei Yi and Hikaru had, only Wei Yi's rook was kind of out there, and, you know, there was mate threats, and then Wei Yi ended up losing his pawn, but that's not going to happen here. Rook e8 is a fancy move. If you take it, you get mated, but that's not what happens. Yeah, this game, this was much less of a game. This was the biggest non-game of the round. There was always one. The Divya game was complicated, very fighting, dynamic game. Tan Zhongyi was trying to break through, but Divya's defenses were too good. This game ends in a non-factor, and that brings me to the last game, which is... I apologize for the brain fart. I had to pause the recording for a second because I didn't have the game. I never clicked the actual game, and I was scrambling. Happens. Every now and then, I make a very small edit in my videos. Well, that was one of them. Okay, Zhu Jiner versus Vaishali Ramesh Babu. This was a complicated game, a big battle. Very important, by the way, because Zhu Jiner, she did lose early in the tournament, but she's the highest rated woman in the world. She's ready to make a statement, you know? And the last, you know, it's like China has a ton of up-and-coming prodigies. Like they have Tan Zhongyi, right? They have Lei Tingyi. I don't want to say up-and-coming prodigies, but like it's China and India. It's like they have a wave of strong players. So Vaishali defends with the king's pawn. We have an Italian, and now we have h6, an early h6. This could mean one of 2 things. Not only are you preventing white from playing any g5 business, you also could be playing g5 yourself. It actually does happen. You know, black plays d6 and g5, or bishop c5 and g5 castles, or you can do what's going to happen in this game, which is g6. This is another type of Italian, like this. You know, bishop g7 and castles, and black kind of plays like a Peart's King's Indian-ish position. Very rich, actually. I find these positions very fascinating. h6, g6, very nice. White takes space. Now, black at any point can play a6, or white will put the pawn on a6. So white is either going to go instigate with your structure, or black will respond and kind of keep it there. White will then obviously, you know, try to take as much space as possible. Maybe try to exploit the d5 square. There is no bishop g5 to trade the knight, which would destabilize the center, all this type of stuff. So bishop g7, a6, b6. You go attack on the light squares, and then you do this. This is a very cool strategy, by the way, by white. Very cool. So black has 6 out of 8 pawns on dark squares. That means that black's light squares are weak, and that's really encapsulated by this. White does this because white is ready to give away the knight, already built, white is ready to give away the bishop for the knight, already rebuilt the light squares, and this bishop will be a non-factor. You play the move h3 and you take this knight, that bishop is terrible. That bishop's not participating. And on top of that, it's a closed position. So in a closed position, you want pawn breaks. Black doesn't have a single pawn break. The only one is f5. So Vaishali is going to have to suffer and maneuver her pieces for a long time in this game. Now, that's why she jumps like this. But the problem with this move is that after this trade, you transform the position in a way where this pawn could be a weakness. Knight b5 might have been even stronger, hitting 4 pawns at the same time, keeping an eye on everybody. This bishop is a little bit worse than this bishop, which has a clear direct line of attack. So white always has attacking chances. And there's Vaishali going for the pawn break. In a closed position, you feel pressure. When you don't control the pawn breaks in the position, by the way, pawn play, pawn breaks, pawn islands, pawn structures, that's the second chapter of How to Win at Chess Next Level, my book for intermediate players, which I talked about in the intro. So important. F5 is a big decision, and you feel like you lose control here. Now, the best move for white is actually to take the pawn, because both options for black to take back are bad. If you take with the rook, you allow me to get knight g3 or maybe even g4, and then maybe even f5, and if you take with the pawn, your king is weak. Zhu Vaishali plays knight g3, which is the same idea. She's trying to put pressure, and now she kind of gets forced into b4, and then taking, but she's just not taking. She's like, you're going to take me, I'm going to replace it with a pawn, and then I'm going to attack you, right? And there's h4. This is pawn play. This is excellent pawn play. She's trying to undermine Vaishali's pawns. Vaishali goes d5. This is like really freaking pawn play now. Now, the most natural move here for white is e5, because that just completely locks away the bishop. But it's better before you play e5 to take once, and now e5 is a totally different story, as the center is locked. In the previous version, there would have been this. So now Vaishali's bishop is really bad. It used to be chewing on its own pawn. Now it's just blocked in. She's got to land g5. If she doesn't land g5, she's going to be in trouble, but she can't even play g5. That would ruin her position completely. So she goes h5. h5 is miserable. That's a tough move. Now black is going to have a very difficult task of maneuvering pieces to the available squares and trying, you see, she's trying to activate her rook, she's trying to bring the bishop. But this might be her demise. The thing is that here, Zhu Vaishali just controls the whole board with her pawns. It's almost like Go. Is that a bad analogy? Like you control territory. So because she controls all the important territory, black just can't move. She can't move. She's sitting around waiting. Knight takes d4. She ends up losing a pawn. And Vaishali tries to defend with the king, but it's not enough. It's not enough. White here has a target that black has to defend. Black is defending it. And now white is going to slowly make sure that she gets to a position where she trades off the perfect pieces. And now there is an infiltration here and an infiltration here. Beautiful play by white. Maybe black could have defended a little bit better, but white just, look at this. Look at this beautiful maneuvering. Look at that queen maneuvering. And the game is over. She Queen g3 to e1 to c1 to c2 to b3 to b4. Mind-blowing. Incredible stuff. Amazing maneuvering here from Zhu Vaishali. And she's finally able. And look at this, and she continues to maneuver. She maneuvers until black doesn't have a move. Black is in what they call a Zugzwang. Black cannot move the queen, the king, or the rook because white is threatening to infiltrate here, here, and there. This is crazy. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Queen b8 is maybe the only way to survive, and that's what she does. But now queen b3, you got to defend the pawn. And you go to defend the pawn like this, and that's, well, I thought she actually played the winning move. Rook c6 would have won the game on the spot. But she goes king g3, and then rook c7. So she just waited for the opponent not to have a move, and then she gets in. And, I mean, this might be one of the most brutal positions somebody has had in a long time. The fact that white can literally just shuffle the queen around and black runs out of moves doesn't even look like white is creating a threat here. But Zhu Vaishali wins in very nice positional fashion. And that brings us to the conclusion. On the women's side, yeah, nobody has 3.5. 3-3-3, and last place is only a point out of first. So even though Vaishali just lost, she could win the next round and be close to first. Yeah, the women's candidates is an incredibly close tournament. Lagno Bibisara and Zhu Vaishali, she just won 2 games. And the gentlemen, it's looking like a 2-horse race. Although, at any moment, if a leader loses and one of these boys catches them, you know, we got Anish Blubaum. I mean, Anish is going to play for the win. Wei Sindarov, I doubt Wei is going to try to push for a win. And we have Pragg Esipenko. Caruana has a double white that happens in your pairing sometimes. He's going to try to push for the win. Esipenko's in last place. Hikaru and Esipenko tied for last place after 5 rounds. What on earth is happening? Crazy candidates. Unbelievable. That's all I have for you today. It's a last chance, last push to get a signed copy. They're going to be gone probably by the end of the day. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah. See you all for round number 6. And appreciate the support on these recaps. And get out of here.